Now to middays, Kelly Bennett, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Good morning, guys. Happy Friday to you. I got an Elvis story before we get to news. Can I tell it?
Sure. Absolutely.
You reminded me of that when you were talking to Jenny earlier. My dad was stationed in Germany when Elvis passed away, and my mom was this huge Elvis man, and we heard it on the Armed Forces Radio Network, and nobody wanted to tell Mom. She was in the shower at the time. But I got the coolest story for you. So because we were stationed in Europe for a few years when I was a kid, my dad would take us to a different country every weekend, and we would go to campgrounds. And we were sitting around the campground one night. You got people around the campfire that have kind of gathered. We're all tourists having a good time. And everybody's speaking a different language. And we're trying to find something that we all have in common. And Elvis came up. And everybody started singing along to Elvis songs. And that's how we united at the campfire. It was really neat. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, there's no doubt global appeal. Mr. Presley. No doubt about it. I mean, I remember where I was. I was in the hall of my fraternity house up at Ole Miss at Rush, August 16th, 1977. And I was in the hall, I think, walking to the stairs from my room, and one of the brothers there opened the door and said, Elvis just died. That's where I was. Remember that distinctly. And it's one of those things that'll stay with you, forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But keeping his memory alive through that festival in Tupelo is pretty cool. It's a pretty neat deal for sure. So
I got to make it up there one year. That's on my bucket list.
There you go. That sounds good. Well, tell us what's going on in the news across the great state of Mississippi. Well, honestly, a lot. But what do you think? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's start with the Holly Springs Utility District, which has been under a lot of scrutiny. And the PSC recently got some legislation that's going to help them investigate what's going on there. So customers have been in crisis, basically, going hours, sometimes a week or more without service. Northern District Public Service Commissioner Chris Brown told us they're still having outages.
They've hired a right-of-way crew to kind of go out and start cleaning some of the lines, and I've heard that they hired an extra lineman and a manager, actually.
So he is seeing some progress. Recent legislation gives the PSC the authority to take action if they find utilities aren't delivering adequate service. So they're currently working on an in-depth study on the utility.
Anybody in that district that has an outage, that goes without power, please report it to the Public Service Commission. We're keeping track of it. We're keeping records of it. That'll give us more data as we move forward.
A TVA report recently found conditions are so unsafe in that district for those customers that neighboring power companies don't even want to come in and help them out.
Wow. Unbelievable. So this Mary Mahoney's story that surfaced, was it yesterday?
Yes.
That just seems like it came out of nowhere. Tell us about that.
It definitely came out of nowhere for me, being a Coast resident. I mean, I've talked to Bobby Mahoney. I've been entertained by him. He tells the funniest jokes. Well, anyway, his historic Biloxi restaurant facing felony charges. Thursday, Anthony Satanovich and Mary Mahoney's Old French House, Inc. pled guilty to conspiracy to mislabel inexpensive imported seafood as locally caught premium seafood. Satanovich could face up to 3 years in prison, a possible $10,000 fine for the crime. Mary Mahoney's Old French House faces a maximum penalty of 5 years probation and a $500,000 fine. Now, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the restaurant has been passing off fish from Africa and India as local red snapper and grouper in a scheme that could go as far back as 2002 and continued all the way through 2019. The sentencing is coming up on September 12th. And I think if you talk to anybody on the coast, they'd be shocked to hear this. And there's been a big push over the past few years for these local restaurants. And we've got so many great seafood restaurants down here on the coast. to really incorporate the local Gulf Coast fish into their menus.
Interesting. Yeah, that was just caught me off guard. Honestly, didn't expect that. I've always enjoyed dining at Mary Mahoney's. It's always been a favorite.
The best food.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So we'll see where this goes. What about this situation with the housing of illegals in the Tunica Casino? What's the latest on that?
Well, nothing is finalized, but this former casino hotel in Tunica could be used to house as many as 2,000 illegal immigrant minors. These are kids under the age of 17. The influx care facility would be located at the Harrah's Hotel complex, which has been empty since 2014. And Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, when she started hearing about it, she started doing her due diligence. And she ended up speaking with a guy named Jeff Hild with the Department of Human Services.
And another question was, is there anybody in the federal delegation that is supporting this? And they immediately said, oh, yes, Congressman Benny Thompson has reached out, and he is definitely supporting this. You know, I said, will you tell me who is doing the RFP? Who's putting the proposal in? And he told me Dynamic Construction Group.
She's among those expressing concerns. I don't know why I can't talk all of a sudden, Gerard. I've been talking all day. She's among those expressing concerns about the impact on public safety and health care if the contract were to go through.
This is because of an illegal open border the Biden administration has created. You know, Mississippians aren't really willing to pay for all of these services.
And I thought it was interesting. Drake Bassett, the president and CEO of Palmer Home for Children in Mississippi, who we do a lot of work with, we have a radiothon for him to benefit them every year. He talked about the impact that this will have on these children.
It's, in my opinion, just another incremental move on the part of the federal government to try to absorb a population that it's not prepared to absorb. And specifically, when you're talking about children.
He says the long-term effects is just not being discussed.
You're putting them on a course of depression, anxiety, and eventually self-harm. And with such low accountability for their presence, for their care, and if you look at the statistics already, easily probably 250,000 that can't be accounted for who've already been allowed to come across the border.
Your heart just goes out for these children, you know.
Yeah, I mean they're caught in the trap here, and they didn't cause this problem, and they're just in limbo and just want to be children. It's a difficult, very very difficult thing, and I'm looking at the RFP, by the way. It's 112 pages. It's a 112-page RFP issued by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services on May the 20th. May the 20th is when the RFP was issued. So essentially it's an RFP where they're looking for a vendor, if you will, a contractor, to house these illegals. It's crazy. They created the problem. The same administration that's issuing this RFP are the ones that allowed this to happen, which is what Cindy Hyde-Smith, the senator, pointed out. So.
Right, and you've got a lot of people, city leaders in the area where this would be happening who are saying, look, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have hospitals, we can't handle this kind of influx.
Yeah, I just wondered, honestly, what action could be taken. And what I mean by that is this is the federal government looking to procure something, and they're looking to third parties to be a vendor to supply it. So it seems to me like our grievance ought to be with the federal government, and we should be talking to them about how to address this issue other than through this means. They're going to find some place in the country to house these illegal children.
There are several states that are filling out these contracts, that are trying to get these contracts. We're not the only one.
Right.
But we're also not a sanctuary state like some of these other states are. So
yeah, man. It's just a big old dang mess, and change can't come quick enough. Well, we appreciate you joining us, Kelly. As always, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Y'all do the same.
We're coming right back, folks, in the